Welcome to all of our visiting Rotarians and guests. We have a really interesting presentation by one of our members today, and this was one of my goals this year, was to make sure that we really got to know each other and have an opportunity to hear from the interesting people that are in this room every week. And so I would like to introduce Peter Sosnowski as our guest speaker today.
Because most of my presentation deals with my family history, especially the generation of my father, because that history involves a lot of political and military history, ending up, oddly enough, here I am in Canada. This is the sort of career track you don't see very much anymore these days. This was what you'd call, in the Mad Men era, this was a typical career track. My first mistake was to go to Harvard Business School when I was much too young, and I ended up being the youngest member of my class. So I came back 25 years later when I had a lot more experience under my belt to do the advanced management program. We all reach a stage in life where we ask the question, do you live to work or do you work to live? And I'd been living too much to work, so I changed my life. And to cut a long story short, I took one single product in the boondocks of France, Rémy Martin Cognac, and around that, we in the family, we built an international premium prestige wines and spirits business. And this is a picture of my father when he was commander-in-chief of the Polish Armed Forces during World War II. We'll be getting back into that. Now, this always intrigues me. Our family is from the landowning nobility, and one of the first early historical records goes back to 1094. So here I am, 921 years later in Victoria, BC. I started in 1914 because this is when history. Poland at that time was occupied by the Russians in the east, by the Prussians in the west, and by the Austro-Hungarian Empire in the south. Down at the bottom, you see my father and Piłsudski at the head of the first military formations. And here are the two of them again at the front, because here we are in World War I, and of course these units fought in World War I. We are victorious in World War I. The Germans released Piłsudski and Sosnkowski, and here they are returning to Warsaw to start and establish the independent Republic of Poland on November the 14th in 1918. Here's my mother again, whom I greatly admired because she didn't need to, but she volunteered to stay behind under the bombs in 1939 in Warsaw and nurse our wounded soldiers in Warsaw under German occupation. I'm showing you the citation by King George VI when he awarded my father the KCBE, Knight Commander of the British Empire, later on, as well as the KCB, because this is where we start intersecting with Canada in our family history. The whole Western war effort, Atlantic and Pacific, Japan, and the Axis, was run by four people at the very top. Two political, two military. The political were Roosevelt and Churchill, and the military, Allen Brooke and General George C. Marshall. Here we are with Viscount Harold Alexander, later Field Marshal Alexander, later Governor General of Canada. So again, as I say, our history starts intersecting with Canada. The Canadian Commander-in-Chief on the left, and here's my father inspecting components of the Canadian Army. They became close friends. As in fact it happened, this photo I show of my father talking with King George VI on an inspection trip in Italy. Good old TCA. How many of you remember TCA? In those days, that was I won't get into the story of Trans-Canada Airlines, but here's my father visiting a Polish Legion, equivalent of the Legion, the Veterans Club in Toronto, and so this is the greeting committee on the Toronto tarmac. From a position of great wealth, we ended up in Canada without a penny. So there was no one to pay for my education, so I had to pay for my own education. So I became, among other summer jobs, a hard rock miner in Wawa, Ontario. Pleasure of taking my mother home for the first time, in 1977. Until then, we were on the prescribed list. Literally the orders were to shoot on sight anybody from the Salzankowski family who showed up in communist Poland. I'm back in Ottawa, and this is November 10, just last year, just a couple of months ago. And I'm at the Polish Embassy in Ottawa to celebrate the Polish Independence Day, which I told you about, for which my father was a key shaker and mover. And I'm shaking the hand here of a surviving veteran of the 1st Polish Armored Division, who fought alongside the Canadians' armored and infantry divisions in the 3rd Corps under General Guy Simmons. Polish people are enormously grateful right now, and now Poland is a big prosperous country, but as Putin is playing Hitler to the West Chamberlain, with all of his stunts in Ukraine, these countries are worried. I mean, Putin publicly said he can take Warsaw in 2 hours and take Kiev in 1 hour. He said that publicly. And then he said, never forget, I have a huge nuclear force. So I'm saying all of this just because this expression, everybody's bandying around, boots on the ground. Well, Canada has boots on the ground right now in Poland and wings in the air, because there's an ICAF squadron with all of its support forces serving in Poland on the Polish Air Force Base right as I speak. We're enormously grateful for that. You might ask, why am I in Victoria? Well, I'm in Victoria because my daughter lives in Hood River, Oregon, my son lives in Tahoe City, California, and this wonderful city is the closest Canadian city to them.
Our next speaker is Gordon Grenius, and he is going to update us on this year's car raffle. And I just want to open this with a couple of statements. One is that one of my objectives for this year was to continue some of our strategic partnerships in order to serve our local community even better. Because I really think that business here in town and other charitable organizations, if we all work together, we can actually achieve so much more.
This is going to be a very exciting year for the car raffle. The partnership is between the Rotary Clubs of Victoria, all 11 of them hopefully, Thrifty Foods, and the Victoria Foundation. And the goal is to help to set up what Victoria Foundation calls the Food Share Network. So it's an idea where we develop and implement a comprehensive food distribution system in the greater Victoria area, all the way from Sook all the way up to Sydney, where perishable food is collected from grocery stores, farmers markets, farms, and restaurants. And this food, which is still good, is distributed to vulnerable populations. So it'll be in contact with all of the food banks. The idea was that Thrifties wanted to get together with all of the Rotary Clubs so that they could say that they're working with Rotary to do something. And they offered tangible support in cash. And the amount that they're prepared to give is $27,000 in cash. That will pay for the car. So what we want from each Rotary Club is to provide help in ticket sales, car movements, and in providing sales venues. As you can imagine, because Thrifties is the sponsor, we're not going to be selling tickets at Save on Foods or at Superstore or any of their competing food chains. It'd be easy to reach $100,000 profit. That number is important because the Victoria Foundation will match our profits to a maximum of $100,000. The Rotary Club of Victoria keeps 10% of the net profit for administrative overhead. So if we sell $140,000, we get $14,000. One of the things that people don't get very much of from the food banks is fresh produce. So this is a way in which people are going to get access to a different type of food. They're not just going to get crafted. Car raffle helps to build stronger relationships between Rotary clubs in the Victoria area. We're much stronger as 400 or 450 people than we are as 100.
Thank you so much, Gordon. That was excellent. And I just want to reiterate again, your board tonight is going to review every single line of this partnership agreement and vote on whether we agree to sign off on it or not.